Hey everyone, welcome back to QuincyReads. Today we are diving into Heaven Official's Blessing, 天官赐福, to talk about the two guys Hua Cheng loves to call those two useless pieces of trash, Feng Xin and Mu Qing. We are going to unpack their bond with Xie Lian, a friendship that spans 800 years and is affectionately dubbed by the fandom as the Three Xianle Idiots. From Hua Cheng's perspective, Feng Xin and Mu Qing really aren't that likable. They are the crown prince's former subordinates who are constantly bickering with him. Their skills aren't exactly peerless, and most importantly, they turned their backs on Xie Lian during his darkest hour. To Hua Cheng, these two are essentially deadweights, dragging down the person he holds most dear. But ironically, these two guys he casually dismisses as trash are arguably the most important supporting characters in the entire novel. Through Xie Lian's entire journey, from a golden, pampered crown prince to a mortal dragged through the mud, to a god who has weathered 1,000 storms, they were present at almost every major crossroads. They were his right-hand man in his youth, and they remain the oldest friends who know him inside and out.
The chemistry of the three idiots.
Whenever the Xianle Trio shares the screen, you just can't help but smile. Put them in a room together, and they have this exclusive, unspoken chemistry that leaves no room for outsiders. Even in the most high-stakes, life-or-death situations, they somehow manage to radiate that cheer teenage energy. The thing that always stands out to me is the battle at the Heaven Crossing Bridge. There's a sea of boiling lava behind them. The bridge is literally crumbling beneath their feet, and their lives are hanging by a thread. Yet, these three are still finding the time to roast each other, completely diluting the tension of a desperate situation. When you really look at them, Feng Xin and Mu Qing are actually cut from the same cloth. The most glaring similarity, they are both massive stand-ups. Sharp-tongued, fiercely guarded, and way too proud for their own good. They've hated each other's guts since they were kids. Whenever they meet, it's instant eye-rolling, airing out Asian dirty laundry, and acting like they were entirely incompatible. Yet throughout the entire book, the only time they drop their beef and present a united front is when they are facing Hua Cheng. During the Mount Tonglu arc, when they both mistakenly believe that Hua Cheng has bad intentions toward Xie Lian, they instantly squad up to protect their crown prince. Their synchronization is almost ridiculous. You can tell right there that even though they were separated from Xie Lian for 800 years, their instinct to protect him hasn't shifted a single inch.
Art account era.
The way they return to Xie Lian's side for the third time is also dripping with this awkward, prickly affection. After Xie Lian's third ascension, they both coincidentally create art accounts, clones under fake names, Nanfeng and Fu Yao, to secretly tag along on his missions and help him clean up his messes. But even while hiding behind these smurfs, they instantly go for each other's throats. That familiar urge to strangle each other isn't masked at all. Truth is, as early as the Mount Yujun arc, Xie Lian already had a pretty good guess as to who they were. He knows these childhood friends too well. He knows they have huge egos, and their parting back then was ugly, and that they want to help him now, but are too embarrassed to show their real faces. So he doesn't expose them. He just plays along with their little theatrical performances. It's a small detail, but it perfectly highlights Xie Lian's brand of gentleness. It's not just superficial kindness, but a deeply ingrained empathy for the awkward positions of others.
The breakup. Unnecessary tragedy.
But let's be real, this loud, chaotic friendship was never a flawless fairy tale. When the kingdom of Xianle fell, Xie Lian plummeted from the heavens straight into the gutter. When he was reviled by millions and stripped of everything, Mu Qing chose to walk away first. And not long after, Feng Xin left too. Whenever readers get to this part, there's always a sense of heartbreak, and many openings condemn them for the betrayal. But looking back, while that separation was tragic, it was also inevitable. It wasn't just the separate paths three desperate boys chose in an impossible situation. It was a hurdle Xie Lian had to cross alone to grow. For Xie Lian to transform from a shattered prince into a god who truly understands the suffering of the world, he was destined to experience the absolute, crushing loneliness. He had to weather the darkness and despair entirely on his own, with zero safety nets, to temper his fragile, idealistic heart into something gentle yet unbreakable. Plus, he was still a proud teenager back then, enduring the humiliation of performing on the streets, scavenging for trash, and being degraded is honestly easier to swallow when you are alone, rather than shattering into a million pathetic pieces in front of your best friends.
The ultimate pragmatist, Mu Qing.
Let's talk about Mu Qing. From inside the narrative to the fandom outside of it, he's a highly controversial character. A lot of people resent him for the Blessed Land incident, labeling him an ungrateful backstabber. But I've always felt that Mu Qing is the most relatable character to us ordinary people. If you walk a mile in his shoes, he is incredibly hard to hate. He isn't like Xie Lian, who was born wrapped in halos and unconditional love. Mu Qing came from the absolute bottom. His father died early, leaving him with a blind mother who relied entirely on the meager wages he made from doing menial chores just to survive. He learned how cold the world was entirely too young, and he understood the crushing weight of world survival long before the others did. When Xianle fell, Xie Lian still had his lingering ideals and Feng Xin by his side, but Mu Qing's mother only had him. Caught between the loyalty to his prince and the duty to his mother, he chose his mother. It was the most realistic, agonizing choice an ordinary person could make. He's a pragmatist to his core. When he sees people smashing the crown prince temples, he tells Xie Lian to endure it. Why? Because he knows that a momentary outburst of pride won't buy them their next meal. He is grounded in reality. Being trapped in a hopeless, miserable situation wouldn't save the country, wouldn't save Xie Lian, and wouldn't protect his own family. He always says the ugliest things, but he's always doing the most practical work. Whenever Xie Lian's idealism sends him drifting into the clouds, Mu Qing is the gravity that yanks him back down to earth. And yet, this unbelievably stubborn guy spent his whole life silently serving Xie Lian. Back in the Xianle Palace, he personally washed and mended all of Xie Lian's clothes, managing every detail of the prince's daily life. In the cave of 10,000 gods, he didn't even need to see the faces of the statues. He recognized Hua Cheng's sculptures of Xie Lian purely by the stitching and the folds of the carved robes. 800 years later, when the trio finally reconciles, Mu Qing immediately takes over the mundane chores again, cleaning, mending the silk bandolier, teaching Xie Lian how to make a belt. He is just as meticulous and attentive as he was when they were kids. The most gut-wrenching moment is on the Heaven Crossing Bridge, at the point where even Hua Cheng and Feng Xin suspect Mu Qing might be a spy for Junwu. Xie Lian is the only one who doesn't doubt him for a single second. When Mu Qing is about to fall into the magma, Xie Lian doesn't hesitate. He reaches out and pulls him back. Xie Lian once gave a very interesting evaluation of Mu Qing. Someone like Mu Qing, even though he's petty, narrow-minded, overly sensitive, paranoid, has a bad personality, is prone to fixating on the little things, never says anything pleasant, likes to nag, is always offending others, and has garnered a lot of dislike on that account, has no friends, and remembers small, unimportant offenses for far too long. He might spit in the cup of someone he doesn't like, but he will never poison the water. I've known him since we were young, and he's still got principles. That quote perfectly encapsulates their bond. The 8-year-older Xie Lian is emotionally unshakable. He chooses to believe in Mu Qing not because Mu Qing is flawless, but because he watched him grow up. He understands Mu Qing's sensitive inferiority complex, his tough talk but soft-hearted nature, and most importantly, he knows the moral line Mu Qing will never ever cross.
The straight shooter, Feng Xin.
If Mu Qing is a labyrinth of complex, convoluted pragmatism, Feng Xin is the exact opposite. He is a straight shooter, fiercely loyal, with a one-track mind. Ironically, this utterly straightforward guy, who basically only has one repetitive catchphrase when he argues, is the only one of Xianle Trio who ever had a romantic partner and a child. There's a passage introducing Feng Xin in the book that always leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. Feng Xin was loyal to a fault, and he had been Xie Lian's imperial bodyguard since the crown prince was 14 years old. He grew up with Xie Lian. They entered the heavens together, were banished together, and drifted together. Unfortunately, they couldn't endure all 800 years together. In the end, it was an unhappy separation as each went their own way, never to meet again. He walked with Xie Lian through his brightest glories and waded with him into the darkest mud. It's not that he didn't try to stay. He literally stayed until he broke. And during those 800 years apart, though he never spoke of it, he spent his time in the mortal realm constantly searching for traces of Xie Lian. Even to the very end, Feng Xin might never have realized that the real reason Xie Lian drove him away with such vicious words back then wasn't out of hatred. Xie Lian did it because he was terrified of dragging the last surviving light of his youth down into the abyss with him. He just wanted to preserve what was left of their bond, but that single turn of heel lasted 800 years. I don't know if you caught this detail, but Xie Lian once talked to Hua Cheng about the people in his life he trusts absolutely, with zero defenses. Aside from his guoshi, the preceptor, he mentioned there was one other person. Hua Cheng asked, "Is it Feng Xin?" Xie Lian said, "Of course not." Hua Cheng asked, "Is it Mu Qing?" Xie Lian replied, "That's even more impossible." But here's the thing, even though neither of them hit that absolute trust threshold, their weight in Xie Lian's heart is vastly different. Deep down, Xie Lian inherently leans on Feng Xin, the bodyguard who stood by him since he was 14, and always put his safety first. Even in the after chapters, when Xie Lian gets amnesia, the very first thing he does when he wakes up is to look for Feng Xin, not Mu Qing. That sense of safety and foundational trust, etched into his bones since adolescence, never vanished, even across 8 centuries.
The reunion of the 3 idiots.
So let's circle back to the 2 pieces of trash Hua Cheng talks about. They were never perfect. They are selfish. They have moments of cowardice. They are bound by their own circumstances. They walked away when Xie Lian needed them most, and they've spent a lifetime being awkward, bickering, and hiding their true feelings. They aren't omnipotent gods. Among the masses, they're just the 2 flesh and blood, flawed ordinary guys who happen to have a bottom line. But it's exactly these 2 imperfect people who, alongside Xie Lian, formed the irreplaceable Xianle Trio. Their friendship isn't a smooth-sailing fairy tale. It's a bond that shattered, splintered, and drifted apart for 800 years, only to circle back so they could stand shoulder to shoulder on the heaven-crossing bridge, facing the end of the world together. 8 centuries of wind and rain took 3 reckless teenagers and polished them into stronger, more forgiving men. They've seen each other at their absolute peak, and they've witnessed each other at their most pathetic. They fought, they cried, they walked away, but when they finally met again, they could still bicker just like they did when they were boys, while implicitly trusting each other to watch their backs. I've always felt that the reason these friendships moves us so deeply is precisely because it's so incredibly real. whose youth doesn't feature friends you went crazy with, had screaming matches with, or even drifted away from for years. Not all friendships are meant to be smooth sailing forever, but true bonds are never afraid of a little time apart. And the most beautiful part of it all, even after Xie Lian fell into the dust for 800 years, when he finally looked back, the two boys who grew up beside him were still standing right there, waiting for him. And right by his side is Hua Cheng, someone who understands all his gentleness and fiercely protects his entire past, including these two old friends Xie Lian has carried in his heart for 8 centuries. The story of the Xianle Trio was never a one-man show. It's the story of 3 boys who braved 800 years of storms to finally earn their long overdue perfect ending. That's all for today's deep dive. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Quincy, a native Chinese speaker and a deep dive analyst into Dowry IPs. Subscribe to this channel and let's decode the deepest hidden truths and untold details behind every great story. See you in the next chapter. Bye.